information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hello, everybody, and you are watching The Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are so glad that you're here. Don't forget that as you're tuning in, no matter which channel that you are tuning in with, don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. And in addition to that, you know that we have our show notes at the bottom. And so there's going to be incredible and relevant information from this episode that you're going to want to have takeaways from. And we are so proud to be a show that is all about engaging conversation, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation. And this is something that's really, truly of an umbrella type of a visual, if you can imagine. It's just not the physical piece, but it's also the mental piece, the mental health and wellness, how it integrates together. And according to these days and age, this is something that it's important for us to have takeaways and resources so that we can grow. So glad that you're tuning in today. Without further ado, let's talk about what it means for emotional health and overall well-being. And in doing so, it is extremely appropriate to introduce to you my guest for today. Her name is Lesley Zwick, and she is a holistic performance coach. You want to talk highly qualified and dedicated. She's a certified health and wellness coach, but she guides clients through their journey toward optimal physical and mental health. And there's a lot of different ways to do so. But the really cool thing of what she brings to the table, her receipts are she's an emotion code practitioner as well as a body code practitioner, plus a mindset coach. So with all of the specialization, what she does, her approach involves an understanding of how to connect the two, the emotional health and overall well-being. So mind, body, it's definitely where it's at. We're going to dive into all of that. And so we're first going to start by bringing her up. Lesley, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me today.
I'm excited because I know that you bring some unique gifts and talents to, the ever evolving landscape of health and wellness. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got from say there to here, and what can we learn about you?
Yeah, so my journey has been over the last 7.5 years, really evolving, really changing, really coming into my own and reconnecting with who I am deep inside. And that's actually really what I love to help people do. But everything that I help people with are all part of my journey. It's the processes that I've gone through to reconnecting to myself that I then spread and teach others how to do the same thing. So it really started about 7.5 years ago. I came into this when I hit my rock bottom. I was unhealthy physically. I was unhealthy emotionally. I was unhealthy financially. It was the trifecta of unhealthy. I was 75 pounds overweight. I was someone who I used to call myself a professional yo-yo dieter. I had done every diet out there, lost the weight, gained the weight, lost the weight, gained the weight. And 7.5 years ago, I hit my rock bottom and I looked in the mirror one morning. I can tell you exactly what morning it was. It was February 22nd of 2016. I know that because it was my 39th birthday. I looked in the mirror and I just said, I can't live like this anymore. I cannot continue down this path. I have 3 children and, who I didn't have the energy to be their mom. I didn't have the self-confidence to be their mom. We were in a terrible financial place, but I was hiring babysitters to take care of them because I didn't have the self-confidence to raise my own children. I'm now a homeschooling mom. Spoiler alert, things have totally done a 180 in my whole life. But I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm not here for this. This isn't why I'm here. I can't live like this any longer. And I started with the physical health journey. I knew how to do that. I knew that that's what I needed to do first was to get my body physically healthy. And I had done that before. Like I said, I gained and lost hundreds of pounds over my lifetime, multiple times. And but I went back on that journey, but I decided that this time I was going to do it differently. I've always been into energy healing. I've always been into more holistic. I've always been into really trying to connect with who I am truly inside, but I have pushed some of that away and I had separated the two things. And this time I said, nope, I'm doing it. I'm doing it the right way this time. And I went on to lose 75 pounds in the course of 7 months. And the weight loss was fantastic. But what really happened was I made it my mission to start to change the way I looked at the world, the way I interacted in the world, the way I showed up every day in the world. And that helped my weight loss happen much faster. And it also just shifted everything about what I was doing. And it shifted how I interacted with people. And I had people coming out of the woodwork saying, "What are you doing?" Because they had all seen me lose the weight before. This was not my first rodeo with this, but my whole demeanor changed. My confidence shifted. My, love of being with my kids. I always loved my children. I love them deeply, but I just a different interaction. I was excited to go out and not be the mom sitting on the sidelines watching them and letting other people play with them, but I was out there, with them and doing all the things, and got my energy back, and I was running circles around them instead of them running circles around me. And people were asking, "What are you doing?" And so I started my coaching business. And I was not far into my journey when I started my coaching business. I was about a month and a half into my process when people started reaching out, and I started coaching them first with the weight loss. And then it continued to expand. And people kept saying to me, "What are you doing? What are you doing? We don't necessarily need weight loss, but we need that mindset piece. We need your outlook on this world. We need more of that." And so through that, I started developing more of my mindset coaching business and going down the road, just helping other women and men, but, guide and reconnect with truly who they are inside. And every piece of it, every time I needed a new tool, it just dropped into my lap, which was really cool. I believe that when we need certain things, and we really ask for them, what's my next step? What's my next step? What's my next step? The right person came to me, the right tool came to me, the right guidance came to me. And it has just been, over the last 7.5 years, amazing. And as you said in your introduction, I am certified. I got certified as a mindset coach. I got certified in emotion code and body code. And I actually have another certification in another technique called the cellular alignment technique, which what I do is exactly what I do with myself. I help us shift our energy, reconnect who we truly are in here, find our light, and help it shine really bright in this world. We all have an amazing spark that we're here with. And so many of us, life has just hit us so hard, it's just gotten buried. And so I work myself to peel back those layers and find that spark and let it shine brightly. And then I work with others to help them find their spark and let it shine brightly. Because the brighter our light shines, the brighter other people's light shine.
I love your energy, because obviously it's transferring through, and I can 100% sense it. You mentioned something about shift. So I want to go back to something that you said that really caught my attention. As a mom of four, I can resonate how family means, your kids mean so much to you. What was the shift for you looking back? You were 39, you were a mom. Where was the turning point? Can you pinpoint that moment? Maybe not necessarily the day. Can you pinpoint the moment where it clicked for you?
So I had several of those moments. I think we all do. And each one sort of woke me up a little bit more. I have to say the first one was when my son was born, my youngest. He's about to turn 13 in a few weeks. But so I'll backtrack a little bit more. My eldest has a very rare blood disorder. She was diagnosed when she was 2. It's 1 in 10 million in pediatrics. So that was already my first shift. Okay. So this was, she's 16 and a half. And she was 2 when she was diagnosed. So that was already my first piece of, I need to be here. I need to be my best self, but I wasn't. I was so far from that. When she was diagnosed, my middle was just born. They're 2 years and 10 days apart. So my middle was a brand new infant. And this was part of what I was driving my driving force. I've got to take care of my kids. I've got to take care of my kids. I've got to take care of my kids. I have my eldest, who we had no idea what the story was going to be. Thank God she's healthy and she's stable and all of the things right now. But as a mom of a child with a long-term illness, you never know when the other shoe is going to drop. I mean, we've lived our lives that way. And that's a piece of it. And when my son was born, so my kids are pretty close in age. They're 16 and a half, 14 and a half, and almost 13. And when my son was born, I almost died on the table when he was born. And I don't remember much of it, but I remember laying there thinking to myself, looking over at him there, saying, "I'm not going anywhere. I have a child at home with a long-term illness. I have another, a second child at home, and I have a brand new baby. I'm not leaving this world. And that was a first spark. And this was several years before I really started on the rest of my health journey. But that was that piece that was, no, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And I'm here to take care of my kids. And so when that came about several years later, this was 2010. So in 2016, so 6 years later, when this came about, that was still in the back of my head. No, I was given this opportunity. I didn't die on the table there. I was given this opportunity. I don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch somebody else raise my kids. I don't want to sit on the sideline and feel guilty. I'm here for other reasons. I'm here to raise my kids. I'm here to be part of their life. I'm here to do something big in this world. I don't know what it is. I still don't know what it is, 7.5 years later, but I think it changes every day, all of us, how we choose to show up. But those were some of those pivotal moments. And my kids reminded me quite frequently. And
I love
yeah.
what you said. Something that you said resonated with me. Now, my kids don't have a lifelong illness. However, I am an autism mom, and so you just said something pretty powerful. And I hope our viewers can tune into that. The I'm not going anywhere. That affirmation of you've made that statement. You've declared it. You've and I can't help but wonder, was that a turning point for you? Because for me in autism and being an autism mom, there had to have been resolve that I had to muster the courage to then keep going. Was that something that was that a turning point for you mentally, where when you made that statement, you felt like, all right, now we're getting down to business?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That was that I know I need to be here. It took me a while to figure out what I needed to do and how I needed to do it, right? Old habits, right? We have habits, we have patterns, we have, things that keep us stuck where we are. And that's what I love helping people do, is shift out of that, not be stuck. After you've had that pivotal moment of, I'm here, I have a purpose, I'm not going anywhere, then getting out of this stuck of, but how do I move forward? And it took me a while to figure that out. I'm still on that journey. I'm still figuring that
Me
out.
too.
Right. I think we'll always be figuring it out. But yes, absolutely. That was that pivotal moment of, I decided, and that's the key in anything, is to decide something. Once we decide, we cut off all other options. I decided that I'm here and that I have a role and that I have a place to be, and I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to figure out how to get unstuck, and I'm going to figure out how to move forward, and I'm going to figure out how to do those things and live my purpose and teach my kids how to live their purpose and teach everyone that I connect with how to find their purpose and live their purpose. It's a powerful, powerful moment. And I think we all have those little signs of it. We just have to be open to hearing it and open to recognizing it.
Yes. What was helping you to move forward? I'm curious about, your family and those around you. So everyone was noticing your transformation. Everybody was noticing that you were talking differently, you were moving differently, you lost the 75 pounds. What were some things that were helpful and what were some things that were not helpful as you were paving the way and making the case for a better life?
The support that I got from all sides was really helpful. The people asking, how can I do this too, was really helpful. The things that weren't helpful were when people started questioning, are you sure you haven't lost too much weight? And those kinds of questions and some of that comes from people caring. It really does. And I know that, and I can hear that. It also comes from, sometimes people wish they could have that. And so it's their defense mechanisms that come in. But I think when you see someone going on a journey like that, when they're trying to transform their life, and it's sort of shaking you up because they're different. It happened really fast for me. And sometimes people didn't know how to show up around me because I was showing up differently and they weren't shifting yet. They weren't changing yet. And so I think if you see someone in your life that is changing and is trying to grow and be better, be curious about it. Ask them questions. How is your journey going? What is inspiring you? Learn from them and be curious and notice when your guard goes up. because a lot of times we respond in a way that it's our guard going up because we see it's a trigger for us. We say, oh, I wish I could do that too. And instead of being able to say, I wish I could do that too, our guard goes up, our trigger goes up, and we respond in ways that aren't helpful to the person who is trying to transform. Or maybe we, yeah.
I love how you said that, because I think that it's not highlighted enough where, and sometimes it seems like it will throw us, it'll throw people off when maybe those who are close to us, we're growing, say a person is growing and then their inner circle is reacting in a way that maybe doesn't feel supportive. And I've often wondered at times, does this mean that the lack of, or that proaction or that progressive activity is reminding others that maybe they're not moving as fast, and suddenly they're feeling a certain type of way about it?
Yep, it absolutely does. So I think there's a couple of things. One, it's reminding them that they're not where they want to be, and that they're feeling really stuck, and they can't move forward. And so I think that that's part of it. And I also think sometimes people don't know what to say. And so they say the wrong things or they don't say anything. So one thing that I've really learned to do is to educate people on, this is a good thing to say. If you want to say something, this would be helpful to say. And if we can say that and be bold about it and educate people, they'll start to reach out because they just don't know. They just don't know what to say. I mean, I know moms who have had miscarriages, and people say all the wrong things to them because they just don't know what to say. So sometimes saying, I'm here for you, I don't know how to support you, but I just want you to know that I support you. That's a really powerful statement, instead of trying to put your foot in your, put your foot in your mouth and say something that might come off wrong.
Yeah. Or maybe even saying, I don't know what to say. I want to be helpful, and I'm having a hard time coming up with the words to be there for you.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's a really important thing, is to own up to that. Just say, I don't know what to say, but just know I'm here for you and that I don't know what to say.
So you've had several breakthroughs, obviously on a personal level. What were some surprising breakthroughs for you as you're growing? You're starting to wear different hats. You're feeling better. The confidence is growing. What were some surprising breakthroughs for you along the way that you did not anticipate?
Most of this I did not anticipate. If you had told me 7.5 years ago that this would be my life, I would have told you were crazy. Because when I started this journey, and even when I first started coaching, I had zero confidence to do it. I remember when I had my first coaching clients, and before I would call them, I would pace back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And the thoughts going through my head, who am I to coach anybody? Right? And I would have to say to myself, no, they hired me. They see something that I don't see yet. Right. And so I just had to really talk myself into it. And first I started with the weight loss and wellness. That part was a little bit easier because that's science. I can, and so I knew, okay, if I take somebody through a program, that's science, that's not really about my ability. And then when people started saying to me, well, I don't need the weight loss, but I really want the mindset pieces that you're doing. Again, that imposter syndrome took over. Who am I to help anybody change their mindset, even though I was doing it, right? And that same thing. And as I started building my first courses, who am I? Who's going to come in and want to do these courses? Who's going to gain anything from me? All those pieces. So all these little breakthroughs were powerful. And the key piece to all of it was, even though I had that going through my brain, I just said, you know what? If one person shows up and wants me to help them, then I'm just going to do it, and I'm just going to do it scared. I remember I do a lot of Facebook Lives, and I remember my very first Facebook Live. I was terrified to do it. And now here I am speaking on your show, and incredibly comfortable talking like this, but terrified. And I got it all, worked my way up to it. And I called a friend of mine and I said, I'm getting ready to go live. Can you give me some support? And I go and I do this whole thing, and it didn't work. This was early on the days of Facebook Live, and there was a technology glitch, and it didn't go live. And she calls me and she's like, it didn't work. I was like, right. So, but it was that first hump. And I went back and I did it again, but then it was still terrifying, but I made it my mission that for a very long time, for about 1.5 years, I went live almost every single day, every night, 7 days a week, unless there were a few things that came up that I couldn't do it, but I made a commitment, and I did it certain times. I did it late at night when there weren't many people on, when my whole family, everybody was asleep, so nobody was going to walk in and hear me and interrupt me. But it was just practice. It was just this, I'm going to do it scared so that I can get comfortable. And, I started out with just teaching from things and taking those baby steps. And I have people that have followed me since my early days and like, oh my gosh, such a difference. But
I
we
love the
have
fact
to
that
do those things.
you're highlighting that you're not leading by emotion, but obviously by decision.
Yeah.
So you stuck with it. It sounded like you sorted through that. You were just dealing with the emotion. You still did it anyway. And then obviously on the other side of fear, you have, you have growth.
Tremendous growth. And we all have those things in our lives that we look at that change and we're terrified. But when we make a decision and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, we just have to go for it. And we have to be inspired from in here. And that's really connecting in here. What's important in here? What does that spark of me want to do? Not outside. There's a difference between motivation and inspiration. A lot of us work off of motivation, which is somebody poking a stick or lighting a fire outside and pushing you forward. But we need to find our internal inspiration and tap into that, because when we do that and we fuel that fire.
And I want to talk more about that for sure. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on The Tour of Love.
The E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
Welcome back to The Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. My guest today, Lesley Zwick, holistic performance coach. And that's not all. She's an emotion code practitioner and body code practitioner. And we've been talking about, she's been sharing a little bit of her backstory, her personal breakthroughs. And we're talking about that shift, that mindset shift of being able to embrace the growth. So I want to pick up where we last left off and talk a little bit about the basics. Well, first of all, before we do that, tell us a little bit more about what it means to be an emotion code practitioner and body code practitioner. Can you say more?
Absolutely. So we all trap old emotions in our bodies. So emotions, just like everything else, are an energy, are a frequency. And those energies and those frequencies can get stuck. So when we feel an emotion, it takes 90 seconds for that emotion to run from head to toe, to run fully through our bodies. And we're feeling emotions all day long, constantly. And most of them, we just allow them to go through us and they do their thing and the energy just passes. But every so often, sometimes more than others, we have an emotion or a trauma or a limiting belief. All of it's the exact same thing. It all creates an energy. It all creates a frequency that our body or our brain, usually our thinker brain, says, I don't want to deal with this right now, and shoves it into a corner. I think you can probably imagine times where maybe you've been out someplace and you felt an emotion and you've just sort of stuffed it down, shoved it down inside of you. And when we do that, our brain says, I'll deal with it later. And we don't deal with it later. And that energy of it continues to resonate in our body, in different areas of our body. And it stays there. It stays there until we release it, until we say, you can go. And we do this all throughout our lives. We learn this, unfortunately, as young children, to hold in our emotions. Don't cry. Don't feel it. It's okay. Just push it aside. The old saying of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words do hurt us, right? Like that is one of the worst sayings that we can ever teach a child, because it does hurt us and we hold on to them. I think we can probably, most of us can remember things that were said to us as kids that just continue the negative self-talk and resonate in our body. And it creates that energy that's actually there. So as an emotion code and body code practitioner, as a cellular alignment technique practitioner, I help people find where those trapped energies are sitting in their body and release that energy, release that frequency. We don't hold on to the ones that feel good, because that just does what it's supposed to do. It just processes through us. But I help them find them and release them really quickly, so that those are things that are keeping us stuck. So the memory doesn't go away if you remember what happened. A lot of these things, we don't even have a clue. I'll help somebody release some emotions and I'm like, I don't know what happened when I was 6. It doesn't matter whether you know what it was. It's that vibration that you were holding on to. And when we clear that vibration, we just have this like calmness that takes over, or this sense of relief, or this lightness. And then these things that we don't even realize how they're affecting us, both emotionally and physically, are gone. And then we can start to move forward and we can start to achieve the things that we want to do.
So does it mean that it has to start with wanting to make a change? Is this something that just that comes to fruition naturally as somebody seeking change? Or is it something is it something that you have to identify right off the bat, that this is a technique that you go straight for, you try to get to the source? Or is this something that has to be verbalized in some regard?
So, I mean, it's a technique. So when somebody works with me, we verbalize it and we talk, but it's not like therapy. We don't need to rehash all of the traumas in your life. Simply, I connect to my client's energy and we find those trapped emotions and we release them. I don't need to know anything about what happened at the time. A lot of times we don't even know what happened.
That's fascinating to me, because oftentimes with therapy, it's the backstory and the origination of where things happen, timeline, is what would be key in so many ways. But this is different. Is this newer?
This is newer.
Okay.
It's not that new, though. I mean, it's been around for a while, and energy work like this has been around for a while. I mean, and Einstein talked about that the future of medicine is all in frequencies, is all in energy, because when these energies get trapped into our bodies, this is really what causes dis-ease. So when you have an energy that's stuck someplace, I like to explain it like this: that picture your body as a big parking lot, okay, and you have trucks coming in and out, taking in what your body, taking in what the organ needs and taking away what it doesn't need. That energy of that emotion, of that trauma, of that limiting belief, of whatever it is, sticks itself in one of the parking spots. And that truck comes in and can't get in. So it can't bring in what it needs and it can't take away what it needs to take away. And so if it sits there for a little while, you're not going to have much of a problem. But if it stays there for too long, we start to have dis-ease. We start to have pain. Starts to turn illness. When we get sick, first our body goes out of balance energetically, then it goes out of balance physically. And then as we start to heal, first it comes back in balance energetically, and then it can come back in balance physically. So it's got to go through that process. So sometimes when I work with clients, immediately we'll release some stuff, and all of a sudden pain that they've had that they can't explain goes away immediately. I have one client who for a year and a half, her neck, she couldn't turn her neck. She had epidurals done. She went to every chiropractor. She had all kinds of things. They had done surgery on her twice. And finally I said to her, let's just do a session. Just let's see what happens with one session. One session, she has no more neck pain. She went to her chiropractor the next day. She's like, I don't know what you did, but don't stop. Because if she had trapped stuff that she had been holding there for many, many years. It didn't cure her arthritis that she has in her neck, but she has no more pain. And I see this all the time. Sometimes it's that quick. that we do 1 or 2 sessions and boom, it's gone. And sometimes it takes longer, depending on how far physically that there is damage from it and how long it's been there.
And I'll be honest, I've not heard of this before, so I thought it would be incredible to, to speak more about it.
Yep.
And clearly it requires being able to think outside the box and be open to what could help the mind and body connection.
Absolutely.
So the shift, take us to the point in creating that foundation where you can build upon and go from there. What's needed in the very beginning to help someone have that shift happen in their lives?
Yeah. So that shift, first of all, so I have my acronym of shift that I always teach about. So SHIFT, right? Shift, the S, the first thing you have to do is you have to seek change. You have to decide, I'm tired of being where I am, and it's got to come from in here, right? If we sometimes it comes from external motivation, but really we need the true inspiration. We need to just feel just enough, even a spark of it, of things could be better, things could be different. I could actually achieve the goals that I want to achieve, and seek that change. So that's the first thing. If you want to make a shift, you have to seek the change and you have to want it. It's not that everybody else around you wants it for you. The second thing is you have to have a plan. Come up with a plan of action. So I teach a lot that we're standing here on this side of the Grand Canyon and we can see the future version of ourselves. We can see what we want is on the other side of that Grand Canyon. And many of us are just standing here spinning in circles, trying to figure out how to get across and just really stuck. So that first thing is the S, the seek change. You want to figure out, okay, how can I stop this spinning in circles and get over there? Then the second thing is to have a plan, the H, have a plan. Got to build a bridge across. So that's starting to build that bridge and starting to have that plan and work that plan out. The next piece is the I, the initiate the action. You have to take that first step, that first baby step, whether it's asking somebody for help, whether it is making a small change in something that you're doing something just a little bit differently than you did it the day before, some small piece, initiating action to start to move you forward. And then we've got the F. The F is the key in this whole thing. Without the F, you are not going to change. So the F is facing your fears. You have to face those fears. Fear is what holds us back from everything. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being on the other side of the Grand Canyon, because even though you're going to get there and the future version of yourself is going to be an amazing place, there's still going to be things that are going to be challenges there too. And our current version of ourselves, our drunk monkey, that I like to call the drunk monkey, doesn't understand that and is so afraid of that.
The drunk monkey?
The drunk monkey. It's our voice that gives us, it wants to keep us here. It's that voice that gives us partial truths, right? But it doesn't want us to face those fears. So I'm not talking surface level fears. I'm talking starting to dig deep. What am I truly afraid of there? And then, reaching them and moving them. And that's where I use emotion code to do that. That's where I use body code to do that. That's where I use cellular alignment technique to do that, is to start really truly facing those fears. And when we do that, that's when we can have the T. That's when we can truly transform. And the transformation is in the process, right? It's not the transformation of all of a sudden I go from here to the other side of the Grand Canyon. That transformation happens as we build our bridge across. And that vision of ourselves on the other side of that Grand Canyon is going to change a whole lot of times as we go. I'm still building my bridge. But when I started my journey 7.5 years ago on the other side of that bridge, the vision that I had was losing the weight. That was what I saw. I couldn't see where I am now because I had to start building the bridge and start moving. And that started to change. And that started to morph and grow. And it's so much better than I ever expected. And the key is, if you do not do the F, then you are stuck, hurt, insecure, and trapped. So when we remove that F from shift, that's what we become: stuck, hurt, insecure, and trapped. And we stay there spinning in our circle on this side of the Grand Canyon. And so I love inspiring people to start to dream what's on that other side of the Grand Canyon. What's over there? What version of yourself is there that you want to get to? And that, number one, seek the change, right? That's that first start. Go for it, right? Start to create that vision, and then we can move forward, and you can take those steps to get there. And I promise, any vision that you have of yourself on the other side of the Grand Canyon, it's going to be 1,000,000 times better as you start the process, because things that you don't even realize can happen will begin to happen as you do this. And the key is in not facing the fears.
Yes, and that's a powerful acronym. And I'm sure our viewers can tell that when you take out the F, you have a big poopy situation. And
Exactly.
So we don't, that's not something anybody wants per se.
No.
And so why is it so hard to face fears? Why is it, would you say, how much of instant gratification in wanting the end result, how much of a role does that play in why we grapple with this and why it's so hard sometimes?
So the biggest piece in my mind is those fears. So our drunk monkey, which you chuckled at that before, but the drunk monkey is there to keep us safe, right? So I talk about mindset a lot, which is really set of minds. We have our head mind, our thinker brain, our heart, which is our emotional brain, and then our gut, which is our intuition. A set of minds is mindset, right? So our thinker brain has one job. That's to keep us safe. And our drunk monkey is part of that. And I teach people to actually name your drunk monkey and personify this, because it's much easier to tell it to be quiet if you're telling it something else. Like mine's name is Cliff. And I tell Cliff to be quiet quite frequently. But Cliff is not there necessarily to hurt me. Cliff is relics of my past goals. Cliff reminds me of things that kept me safe in the past. As someone who struggles with emotional eating, Cliff is the one who says, oh, you can just have one cookie. It'll make you feel better. It's okay. You won't end up eating the entire package of cookies, right? So Cliff lies to us. But Cliff is trying to keep me here in this spot because that worked before. That emotional eating kept me calm before, served me before. Cliff is very afraid of what Cliff doesn't know. So Cliff doesn't know this version of me on the other side of the Grand Canyon. And so here is safe, even though here doesn't feel good. Here feels terrible, but it's the devil we know is better than the devil we don't know. I know when I was sitting at 75 pounds overweight, I knew how to be overweight. I knew how to be deep in debt. I knew how to hire babysitters to take care of my kids when I didn't have the confidence to do it myself. Because even though I didn't like it, it was horrible. It was not the life I wanted to be living, but it was safe because at least I knew how to do it.
So we're molded to our comfort zones. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. If you had told me 7.5 years ago, I'd be homeschooling 3 kids, at the time when I was hiring babysitters to take care of my kids, I would have told you were crazy. But when that came about, and we started homeschooling in 2020 during the pandemic, but the difference, the shift that had happened in me over that time, I'll never forget walking home with my son and my daughter from school. My oldest was at middle school. So I was picking them up from the elementary school, and it was the last day of school, March 13th, 2020. And I'm picking them up, and my daughter was in tears because she was a 5th grader, and she was devastated that she was going to miss the last part of her 5th grade year, because this was a big deal at their school. And because I said to her, you guys aren't going back. With my oldest, who had a rare blood disorder, we didn't know. Her doctors had said, schools are not going to open again, but even if they do, you're not going back, because we didn't know whether it would be a problem or not. I said, you're not going back. And she is sobbing on our way home. And I looked at her, I was like, are you kidding? Summer vacation is starting on March 13th. Like, let's go have fun. Like, if that had happened to me in 2016, before all of this, oh my gosh, I would have been a mess. I would have been the one sobbing and going, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with my kids? I can't have a babysitter in the house anymore. We're all on lockdown, right? It would have been a whole different ballgame.
Wow.
But
and I will tell you, kudos to you. And for any of our viewers who do homeschool, that is quite, that's quite commendable. And, just obviously a testament of pouring your heart and soul into just navigating for your kids. And I can only imagine for me, it was a totally different situation of processing, but I do remember March 13th of 2020 being Friday.
Yep.
And then infamously after everything just kind of coming on down. Yeah. So but yes, but I'll tell you, so the mindset, so I love the clarity that you had. So even though your kids had a variety of different emotions that they were going through and sorting through, you just had such clarity that this was most appropriate and this was the best step. Yeah. So you were leading by example in so many ways, and your kids are seeing that today.
Yeah. And my kids have zero desire to go back to school. They love what we're doing, but our whole lives changed. I mean, we moved from Michigan down to Florida, like everything changed, but I am leading by example, and I could step it up. And that's one thing, as a mom, I really strive to teach my kids, feel the emotions. So when she was sobbing, it's okay to be upset. And I understand that, and feel that emotion. Don't stuff it. Don't stop crying because of that. But let's feel that emotion. Let's recognize it. Let's own it. Let's honor it. But then let's say, okay, what can I do? How can I make the best out of this? I'm all about making the best out of a situation. How can I make the best out of this? Where is the silver lining in this? In my mind at that point, this was before everything had totally shut down. And, what are we going to do? What kinds of fun things are we going to do? We can find outdoor places to go. And we did. We went out and made our own fun. My kids ran around the neighborhood with sidewalk chalk, drawing on everybody's sidewalks, leaving them messages, and knocking on windows and visiting with friends through the windows, and, all kinds of fun stuff, because that was my outlook on life. And that became their outlook on life of, okay, we're not in school. So what are we going to go do? We're going to go make our own fun.
I love that. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back right after this.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. We are spending so much quality time with Lesley Zwick, our guest today, holistic performance coach. And as those of you are tuning in live, we certainly want to recognize the input that you have towards our show. And of course, we have one viewer tuning in, Amy, saying, wow, this makes so much sense when we break down shifting our mindset and using the acronym. What are some of the other revelations you've come across, others have had using this technique, those that you've worked with? What are some things that you've noticed that have become a benefit to some of your clients and those that you worked with?
So relationships become better. People connect more deeply with one another. When we're holding trapped energies, when we're holding on to old stuff, when we're not shifting, we can't connect as well to other people. So I see this with relationships between spouses. I see this relationships with kids, between parents and children. My relationship with my kids has totally changed because I listen to them differently and I talk to them differently and I approach them differently. People in businesses that are trying to run businesses and build businesses grow. They connect with different people in a better and more deep way. I actually had a client last week who she came on, we did one session, and she is also in the holistic realm and coaching kind of realm. And she hadn't brought on a new client in several months. And she was just feeling incredibly stuck. We did one session, and in the next 3 days, she brought on 3 new clients because I was able to help her shift some of that energy, shift her outlook on how she's talking to people, and help her reconnect with people differently. And it all changed. And I see that all the time. I get messages like that all the time. I have somebody who last night sent me a message at midnight saying, oh my gosh, since our session earlier today, she had showed me her whole board of all this open business. She said, I've closed 2 of these things. And she took a picture of her board where she marked them off. Because when we start to shift things, when we start to face those fears, we're our worst enemy. We're the ones who are holding ourselves back in every aspect of our life, whether it's physical health, whether it's emotional health, whether it's relationships. We can achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve. We deserve to have only good things and amazing things in our lives, but it's the crazy thinker brain that talks us out of it, and we don't even realize what it's doing. A lot of times when I work with clients, they don't even realize that what's holding them back is deep down on some deep level, they don't feel worthy of having the success that they want. And so when we can dive in and start to clear that, I'm actually doing a group session later this week in a private community that I have, that's what the focus on this week's topic is finding our self-worth so that we can be worthy of achieving the goals that we're setting out, whatever that is, whether it's to get healthy and lose the weight. Why do 85% of the people that go on a diet put their weight back on afterwards? Part of it is they don't change their habits. That's a big piece of it. But they don't actually feel worthy on a deep level of keeping that weight off. They don't feel worthy of being able to stay healthy on a very deep level. When we can clear that out, then choices become different. They don't start to go back to the emotional eating because I'm worthy of being able to keep my body healthy. I'm worthy of letting my light shine as bright as it can.
Wow. So how much of a disconnect does someone experience in order for, let me back up and see if I can ask this a different way. So does the disconnect between mind and body, does it have to be just slightly, or is it that you found it's a huge situation going on to where something like this, that your approach is much needed and very beneficial?
It can just be the slightest disconnect, and you'll see a huge shift. And a lot of times when people first start with me, we are finding the teeny tiny little pieces, but we all have huge disconnects within inside of us. We do. I mean, it's just we don't necessarily see them. And that fear, the drunk monkey, tries to tell us that they're not as much as they are. So, and that's what I help people do is I start exactly where they're at. So wherever they're at, whatever that small piece is, and as we start to reconnect those disconnects, and we start to reconnect inside of us on that first surface level, then, oh, this feels really good. Well, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. It's sort of like we've got this forest of trees, and the one that we're focused on when I needed to get healthy, what was I focused on? That huge tree that was standing in front of me was the 75 pounds that I needed to lose. I needed to chop down that tree first and get rid of that tree. And once I got rid of that, then there was this whole forest of all these things that I needed to work on and continue to work on. I'm working on myself every single day. And we have to continue. As long as we're in this world, we're going to have places where we can connect more deeply within ourselves. And so sometimes when we start, we think, oh, it's going to be this little piece. And then when we get into talking about it and start clearing those things, we clear one thing and then it's, oh, wait, but now that that's cleared, I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this, because we start to see bigger, right? That vision of ourselves on the other side of that Grand Canyon becomes even greater than what it was. When I started, my vision of the other side of the Grand Canyon was 75 pounds off. That was it. And that was a big goal. That was a huge goal at the time. And that was where I needed to start. Now my vision is so much different than that.
So I have so this brings up a question for me. How would you conceptualize courage for someone who is truly wanting to change their life and is truly has realistically discovered that they want to make this shift? How would you define courage in the whole picture?
Courage is taking that very first teeny tiny step. That's it. Whatever that step is, if you're stuck right here, move to the right, move to the left, move forward, do something that starts to move you. Because every time you do something that starts to move you, the next thing will come to you. It will fall into your lap always happens that way. That's how my whole everything in the last 7.5 years, how I got here, was that I took those first steps. That first step was picking up the phone and asking somebody to help me lose the weight, and starting and saying, I'm doing it differently this time. That was that very first step. And then the next steps, when you want them, they appear. They come in the least expected ways. I'm a firm believer. We meet the people we're supposed to meet exactly when we're supposed to meet them. I have a brand new client who just started with me the other day, and she said to me, I wish I had known you, 3 years ago. No, you weren't ready 3 years ago for what I'm doing. You had to go through the tens of thousands of dollars that you've spent with other people to do some of the things that we've shifted now in 24 hours, but you had to go through that because you had to be ready to be open to hearing this. And they had to help you cut down some of those trees. I'm not the first one helping you cut down trees. We're just now at the trees that you're ready to get rid of now. And you'll work with me for however long that is. And then the next thing will fall into her lap. It works that way. I've worked with numerous coaches myself. I'm a firm believer, even coaches need coaches. And I've worked with coaches who are amazing coaches, and I get to the end of it and I'm like, okay, I got what from you. And now I need the next piece. I need the next place.
That's a clear analogy to have for sure. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Jeff Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back on the Health Revolution, spending time with Lesley Zwick, holistic performance coach. And Lesley, we are running out of time. Where can viewers find you if they're wanting to connect with you?
Absolutely. So best place to find me is on Facebook, Lesley Zwick, which is my name right on the screen. You can reach me there. You can also send me an email at info@lesliezwick.com and understandyourhabits.com, which you just popped up. That is where you can take my free habit finder assessment, which helps you understand and learn about your habits of thinking. And the gold is actually in the debrief. So you can have a free debrief with me. When you come on, when you take it, you can schedule a free debrief, and we're going to go through and you will see exactly how those habits of thinking, how they're affecting your life. And then we can come up with a plan of action as to how to shift them and start to change those habits of thinking. I also have an amazing subscription-based group where people that really want to start to dive in and start to make these shifts. You're ready. You've heard what I've said. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to make those shifts. It's a subscription-based group where we do this shifting in groups every single week, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely reach out, send me an email, or connect with me on Facebook, and I can get you more information as to how to be part of that group.
Are you on other social media channels, or is Facebook the primary one that viewers?
I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube.
Yep. Okay, fantastic. Well, Lesley, it's been incredible. I love your energy, and I appreciate you being on the show today. I think you definitely shared some important information for us to truly think about in creating that shift to have a better outcome for our lives. And I thank you so much for your time and energy today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you tuning in, we appreciate you as well. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, no matter how, in what way you found our way to us today. And then in addition to that, you can always reach us on our website, thehealthrevolutiontv.com. You can certainly share. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can share any input or questions you have for the show ideas, topics that are important and relevant to you. We certainly want to keep the connection with our viewers going and growing. Don't forget that we are on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's all the time that we have today. So until next time, take care. We'll see you soon.